The division was stark, and it played out in real time across every social media platform. The initial hope that his statement would calm the waters had evaporated completely. Instead, he had poured gasoline on the fire. Then, the plot twisted in a way no one could have predicted. A new voice emerged from the shadows, and it was a voice that carried immense weight. A rapper from the West Side, a respected but low-key figure who had collaborated with Jay back in the day and was known to be fiercely loyal to him, dropped a track. It wasn't on any major streaming service. It was uploaded directly to SoundCloud with a cryptic title that seemed to reference the entire situation. The song, which immediately started circulating on social media, was a blistering diss track aimed squarely at Lil Durk. The lyrics didn't just call him out for being careless. They accused him of something far more sinister. The rapper, his voice dripping with contempt, spat bars that alleged Durk's slip-up wasn't an accident at all. He claimed it was a deliberate, calculated move, a soft launch of a plan to push Jay out of the picture because of a deep, secret financial dispute over old music royalties and property. The track alleged that Jay owned a significant silent stake in several of Durk's early ventures, and that Durk had been trying to freeze him out for years. The line that everyone was repeating was, "You thought a live stream could do the work of a trigger. You a businessman now, but you still a..." The implication was clear. He was calling Durk a snake, alleging he used his platform to set a man up instead of handling his business like a man. This was no longer a story about a mistake. It was a story about a potential betrayal of the highest order. The allegations in the diss track sent shockwaves through the industry. If there was even a shred of truth to them, it changed everything. It meant Durk's apology was a complete lie, a performance designed to cover his tracks. It meant the emotional conflict was not just about street codes, but about millions of dollars and a bitter private war between former brothers. The reaction from Durk's inner circle was swift and furious. Within hours of the diss track dropping, India, Durk's fiance, went on a since-deleted Instagram story rant. Her emotions were running high, her voice shaking with anger. "It is so easy for people to sit behind a screen and tell lies about a man who has provided for so many," she said, staring directly into the camera. "Y'all don't know the truth. Y'all don't know what he's built, what he's sacrificed, or the snakes he's had to cut off along the way to protect his family. And for someone to make a song, spreading lies to tear down a black man building an empire for his children is disgusting." She was defending her man, but in doing so, she confirmed one thing. There was, in fact, a serious financial and personal rift between Durk and Jay. She didn't deny the dispute, she just framed it as Durk cutting off a snake. The family was now fully involved in the drama, and the line between personal and business had been completely erased. The situation on the ground in Chicago became tense. Sources close to both camps reported that the verbal war was threatening to turn physical. There were unconfirmed reports of heightened tensions in certain neighborhoods, with people from opposing sides being much more cautious and aware. The police, already monitoring the situation because of the federal interest and the online threats, were said to be increasing their patrols in key areas, hoping to prevent any real violence from erupting. The city, which had seen so much tragedy connected to the drill scene, was holding its breath. Fans were terrified that this was heading towards an inevitable violent conclusion. The sense of impending doom was palpable. Everyone was waiting for the next move, for the other shoe to drop, and then it did. Late one evening, a short, shaky video filmed from a car window began to circulate on Twitter. It showed a storefront, a small barbershop on the West Side that was known to be a spot where Jay's crew frequently hung out. The front window of the shop was shattered, a spiderweb of cracks radiating from a single impact point. There were no injuries reported, and it was unclear if it was a random act of vandalism or something much more targeted. But in the context of everything that was happening, the message was received loud and clear by everyone online. This was no longer just a war of words on the internet. The battle lines had been drawn, and the conflict had just spilled onto the very streets where it all began. The OTF war was no longer an alert, it was a reality. The broken barbershop window was the spark that threatened to ignite a full-blown inferno. The atmosphere in Chicago became thick with a tense, nervous energy. While the police officially called it an isolated act of vandalism, nobody on the streets believed that for a second. It was a message, a violent punctuation mark at the end of a week of escalating threats and accusations. The incident forced a sudden, stark moment of clarity for everyone involved. The posturing, the diss tracks, the social media rants. It all felt dangerously trivial when real property was being damaged. The potential for someone to get hurt or worse, had just become terrifyingly real. This was the consequence that everyone had been fearing, but no one had been able to stop. The drama had finally manifested in the physical world, and the sound of breaking glass was a wake-up call that echoed from the west side all the way to Lil Durk's multi-million-dollar estate. In the wake of the vandalism, a powerful and unexpected voice of reason emerged. It was none other than DJ Bands, a legendary Chicago hip-hop figure and a mutual friend to both Durk and Jay from their earliest days. Bands, who had stayed largely out of the public eye, decided he could no longer sit on the sidelines and watch a generation tear itself apart over a misunderstanding that had spiraled out of control. He used his influence not on social media, but through old-school channels, making private, urgent phone calls to the inner circles of both camps. His message was simple and direct. This ends now, before there's a body bag attached to it. He reportedly told Durk, "You are a father, a leader. Act like one. This pride is not worth a life." And to Jay's people, he appealed to their shared history, reminding them that the young boys they once were would be ashamed of the men they had become, ready to war over a live stream comment. The weight of his words, coming from a respected elder who had no vested interest, seemed to cut through the noise. The constant barrage of online chaos had become exhausting, and the broken window was a chilling preview of what could come next. The breakthrough came 48 hours after the barbershop incident. Through DJ Bands' discreet mediation, a private, audio-secure FaceTime call was arranged between Lil Durk and Jay. It was the first time the two former brothers had spoken directly in over a year. Sources close to the situation described the call as heavy and emotional, filled with long stretches of tense silence. Durk, humbled by the week's events and the near catastrophe, reportedly led with a genuine, heartfelt apology, one that went far deeper than his public statement. He acknowledged his carelessness and, more importantly, he addressed the underlying financial grievances that the diss track had brought to light. He didn't get into specifics, but he affirmed his respect for their past partnership and committed to a private, formal meeting with lawyers and accountants to make things right and finally settle their business once and for all. Jay, a man of few words, Guest was said to have listened intently. He accepted the apology, not because the words alone were enough, but because the action of sitting down to resolve their financial dispute was the tangible proof of respect he had been seeking all along. The call ended without any promises of renewed friendship, but with a fragile, hard-won truce. The war for now was over. Within hours of that private call, the digital battlefield began to cool. The mysterious, threatening Twitter accounts went silent and were deleted. The rapper who dropped the diss track quietly removed it from SoundCloud. India posted a simple, peaceful family photo without any caption, a silent signal that the storm had passed. The change was palpable. The fans, who had been riding a roller coaster of emotions for over a week, finally exhaled. The comment section shifted from predictions of violence to sighs of relief. "Thank God they figured it out," was a common sentiment. The collective hope was that this near disaster would serve as a permanent lesson for Durk and everyone in his orbit about the immense real-world power of their words. But even as the immediate conflict de-escalated, the lingering questions remained, hanging in the air like smoke after a fire. The federal investigation, sparked by Durk's initial comment, was still very much active. A source confirmed that just because the street conflict had cooled, it didn't mean the feds had closed their file. In fact, they now had a treasure trove of new evidence to sift through. The diss track with its specific financial allegations, India's defensive rant confirming a rift, and the entire public timeline of a conflict that provided a map of personal and business relationships. Durk may have patched things up with Jay, but he had potentially created a much bigger, more permanent problem for himself. The authorities had been given a front row seat to the inner workings of his world, and they were undoubtedly taking detailed notes. The OTF war was over, but a new, more silent and bureaucratic battle with the federal government may have just begun. The cost of that one slip-up was still being calculated, and the final bill had yet to arrive. And there you have it, people. The story that shook the hip-hop world to its very core. A simple late-night live stream that spiraled into a full-blown street war, tearing apart brotherhoods, dividing families, and even catching the attention of the most powerful law enforcement agencies in the world. We watched in real time as Lil Durk's one careless moment almost cost him everything. We saw the anger, the betrayal, the chilling threats, and the fragile truce that somehow managed to pull us back from the brink of an unthinkable tragedy. But as the dust begins to settle, we are left with more questions than answers. The biggest question of all still hangs in the air, doesn't it? Was this truly just a mistake? A moment of thoughtlessness from a tired superstar? Or was the diss track right? Was there a darker, more calculated motive behind that slip of the tongue? A hidden war over money and power that finally spilled into the public eye? And let's not forget the most terrifying player in this entire game, the federal investigation. Just because the streets have gone quiet does not mean the feds have closed their case. In fact, they now have a perfect blueprint of alliances and conflicts all laid out for them on the public record. What will they do with all this information? Is Lil Durk now facing a legal battle far more dangerous than any street beef? This is where you come in. The comment section is now open and we want to hear from you. The digital jury is in session. What is your verdict? Do you believe Durk's apology was genuine, or was it just damage control? Who do you think was behind those threatening messages and the broken barbershop window? Most importantly, do you think this truce will last? Or is this just the calm before a much bigger storm? The conversation doesn't end here. Your voice is a part of this story now. If your mind is blown by this deep dive into the drama, you cannot miss what happens next. The world of hip-hop news moves fast, and we are always on the front lines, bringing you the real tea, the unfiltered facts, and the sensational stories you won't find anywhere else. Make sure you are locked in for whatever comes next. Hit that like button if you lived and breathed every second of this saga, and let us know your thoughts down below. But most importantly, tap that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because when the next scandal breaks, and it will break, you do not want to be the last to know. This is your reality, and we are just reporting it. Stay safe out there. Alright y'all, buckle up and put your notifications on, because the streets are talking, and what they're saying is absolutely explosive. We've got a situation so hot, so messy, it's got the entire hip-hop world on absolute lockdown. This isn't just about bars and beats anymore, people. This is about a slip-up so colossal, so catastrophic that it might just have rewritten the rules of the game forever. We're talking about the one and only Lil Durk, the voice himself, caught in a storm of his own making. But this ain't no ordinary social media beef. This is a full-blown OTF war alert, and the implications are terrifying. Picture this, a seemingly innocent late-night live session. Durk, probably in his element, vibing with fans, feeling untouchable. But then it happens. A casual comment, a name dropped, a location hinted at. Something so small, so off the cuff that he probably didn't think twice about it. But the internet? Oh, the internet never sleeps. And the feds, they have permanent insomnia. Within minutes, clips were ripped, screenshots were saved, and the digital detectives went to work. And what they uncovered has sent a shockwave through Chicago, and beyond that, you can feel in your bones. This wasn't just a slip of the tongue. This was a seismic event. The fallout. Betrayals are bubbling to the surface. Alliances are shattering like glass, and whispers from the trenches suggest this single moment has put everyone and everything in the crosshairs. The streets are saying this is the moment the whole OTF empire began to tremble. So before you take another sip of your drink, get ready. Because we're diving deep into the scandal that has everyone from the block to the bureau asking one burning question. What exactly did Lil Durk just do? It all started on a typical Tuesday night, or as typical as it can get for a global superstar like Lil Durk. The clock was pushing 3 in the morning, and Durk, looking a little worn out, a little less guarded, decided to hop on a live stream. For the first hour, it was pure vibes. He was responding to fans, talking about the new album, just sharing a moment with his supporters. But then, the energy shifted. A fan in the comments, someone with the username OTF Numboian, kept spamming the chat with questions about a specific old school affiliate, someone from the early days who hadn't been in the public eye for years. The comments were flying fast. Where he at, Durk? Y'all still locked in? Most people would have ignored it, but Durk, maybe feeling nostalgic, maybe just too relaxed, took the bait. He leaned into the camera, his voice a low mumble. Man, stop asking dumb questions. Everybody know where that nigga at. He over there on that west side, laid up. You know how he do. He said a name. It wasn't a name you hear on the records anymore. It was a name from the shadows. He said it so casually, like he was talking about the weather, and then he just moved on to the next comment. But the damage was done. In that one unthinking moment, Lil Durk had broken the most sacred rule of the streets. You never, ever put a pin on the map for anyone, especially not for someone who values their privacy, their safety, and their low profile above all else. The clip, of course, went viral. But not at first though. It started in the dark corners of the internet, on those forums and Twitter spaces where the real detectives live. Someone had screen recorded the entire live, and they isolated that one 5-second clip. The whisper started slowly. Did you hear what Durkio just did? He just snitched on live. The word snitched started trending, but it was all just fan drama at that point, or so it seemed. The person Durk had named, let's call him Jay for now, because his real name is a landmine we cannot step on. Jay had not been seen or heard from in years. He was a ghost, a legend in certain circles, and Durk had just drawn a big red circle around his general location. Fans were shocked, but they were also confused. Why would Durk do that? Was it a genuine mistake? A moment of carelessness? Or was there something more sinister at play? Was this a calculated move? A subtle message being sent through the digital airwaves? The theories began to spiral. Some said Jay had fallen out with the OTF inner circle months ago, that there was bad blood over money, over respect. Others said it was a simple, stupid error, that Durk was just too comfortable and forgot he was on a live stream with thousands of people watching. But the seed of doubt had been planted. If Durk could be this careless with Jay's safety, what else was he saying when the cameras weren't rolling? The reaction from the OTF camp was immediate, but it was quiet. The kind of quiet that screams. His closest brothers, his day ones, were reportedly blowing up his phone, not with anger, but with concern. The word from insiders is that the group chats were on fire. One message, reportedly from a high-ranking OTF member, read, "Durk, what was that, man? You gotta clean that up." But Durk, maybe out of pride, maybe still not grasping the magnitude of his mistake, was initially dismissive. He was said to have responded in the group chat, "Man, y'all trippin', it ain't that serious. Everybody know where he be at anyway." But that was the problem. Everybody did not know, and now, because of him, everybody did. The real turning point came about 36 hours after the live stream. Jay's people, his real day one family from the west side, reached out, and they were not sending friendly messages. The communication was cold, direct, and laced with attention you could cut with a knife. They weren't asking for an apology, they were demanding an explanation. They felt disrespected on a level that is hard for outsiders to understand. In their world, that kind of loose talk is more than just a mistake. It's a violation of a code, a breach of trust that can have real physical consequences. They felt that Durk had potentially put a target on Jay's back, and in doing so, he had put everyone connected to Jay in danger as well. The situation was no longer just about online gossip. It was a real-life escalating street conflict, and then the unthinkable happened. The story, which had been burning up hip-hop blogs and social media, caught a new, terrifying kind of wind. A source close to the situation, who requested anonymity for obvious reasons, revealed that the slip-up had not just angered Jay's crew, but it had also drawn the attention of some very unwanted spectators. Federal investigators, who have long had an interest in the organized criminal elements connected to the Chicago drill scene, had taken note of Durk's comment. According to our source, they were now actively looking into the information he had so casually revealed. They weren't just looking at Jay anymore, they were looking at Durk himself. Why would he say that? Was it a clue? Was it part of a larger pattern? The feds, the source explained, view these kinds of public statements as potential gold mines. They piece them together with phone records, financial documents, and other surveillance to build their cases. Durk's attempt to be cool with his fans had potentially just handed the authorities a new piece of their puzzle. The walls, as they say, were beginning to close in. The drama was no longer contained to the